Good morning, I'm Harley Schlanger from the LaRouche organization with your daily update for October 11th, 2021. Well, we're facing a situation where the economy is collapsing, and not surprisingly, there's a crisis of governments, not just in the United States, but throughout the world, especially in the Western world, in Europe and the United States. And the only way to address this is to think big. Don't submit to the political identity politics that are being played of left, right, liberal, conservative. Think about the bigger issue here, and to help us do that, we have a wake-up call that was just issued yesterday that I'll get to in a moment. But what we're seeing is an effect on nations. For example, blackouts in Lebanon, the United Kingdom, gas lines, utility prices spiking throughout Europe, affecting families, farms, businesses, industries. The whole system is in a wild scramble to survive. Now, in the midst of this, we have a Washington Post article which says that the energy crisis is threatening the COP26 conference. Now, this article shows you how the insanity of those pushing the Green New Deal is clear. Just listen to what this person writes, Will England in the Washington Post. He said the crisis, the energy crisis, is raising questions about whether the world is ready for the green energy revolution when it's having trouble powering itself right now. He goes on to write, as global leaders prepare to gather in Glasgow, Scotland at the end of the month for a climate conference, advocates for renewable energy say the crisis shows the need to move further away from coal, gas, and oil as prices for those commodities spike. Their critics contend just the opposite, that wind and solar have been tested and came up lacking. No, actually, their critics say something different. It's the green policy combined with deregulation, which is producing the shortages, not the price increases. The price increases are the result of inflation due to the liquidity pumping of the central banks and the commodity speculators moving in to make a killing. There's not a shortage of oil, gas, and coal and nuclear. There is the idiotic decision to shut them down to correspond to the fake science of the global climate change movement. So, in fact, there is a crisis. And it is threatening the ability of the COP26 conference to further impose their agenda. And they can be defeated. That's what they're afraid of. And so they put out a fake narrative that it's actually the prices of these commodities, coal, oil, gas, and so on, that are the problem. But the problem is that the people pushing the Green New Deal are also pushing the Great Reset. And what they're doing is cutting credit to producers of coal, oil, and gas, and electricity producers, and instead making sure that all credit flows into the inefficient and unsustainable, so-called sustainable sources of energy, such as wind and solar. So that's the irony, that the policies that the COP26 is proposing will worsen the energy situation. That's why I say it shows that the people pushing this are clinically insane. And so a wake-up call was initiated by Helga Zepp-LaRouche along with a top figure from the Climate Intelligence Organization. This will be posted on the Schiller Institute website, and it starts by saying we must address the big picture. And here's how the big picture is described. We in the West are ruled by a powerful political establishment which is destroying everything built since World War II. This is typified by the statement in his book, Stakeholder Capitalism, by Klaus Schwab, who wrote that the crisis that we're facing now, that is the so-called climate crisis, is the consequence of a desire to create a better future. Well, we don't have a climate crisis. There is no climate crisis. It's a combination of fake science and ideology. The reality is that his comment actually expresses the true thinking of those pushing the Green New Deal. They believe that the desire to create a better future is the problem. These are evil globalists who believe that the future should only be there for those who are the super rich, and that everyone else should be put on crumbs, pennies a day, and forced to live a hand-to-mouth existence. Why should you give up meat? Why should you give up driving a car? Why should you give up heating your home or cooling it in the summer to serve the interests of the speculative bankers? Well, if they take away the alternative and say that you are about to boil the planet if you continue to do that, you have to counter that. That's what the wake-up call from the Schiller Institute is designed to do. And it should be circulated, distributed to everyone you know, and to create a movement to crush the Malthusian genocidalists who are pushing the Green New Deal, the Great Reset, and the COP26 conference. Now, meanwhile, the crisis is deepening in Europe. The Polish Supreme Court just ruled against the European Union on an issue. I think this is on the transgender issue. But the important thing is that what they said is that Poland is a sovereign nation and has a right to make its own legal rulings and will not submit to the authority of the European rules in the European Union Court. You have the fall of the Austrian government, and the Austrian government is one that's been very outspoken recently on the need to continue trade with Russia and China and on the importance of energy resources, including nuclear power. Their former foreign minister, Kniesel, said that nuclear power is a solution, not a problem. So what's done? The rug is pulled out through phony money scandals to bring down Sebastian Kurz and his government. You have the fall of the Czech government. The president lost an election. The prime minister is now supposedly deathly ill in a hospital. You have no government in the Czech Republic. President Zeman, or Prime Minister Zeman, was one of the people in Europe fighting for more trade with China and Russia. And the Czech government is providing, and the Polish government are both providing electricity to Germany, which doesn't have enough electricity in times of extreme heat or extreme cold because they've shut down nuclear and are about to shut down coal. You have the likelihood there'll be no coalition government coming together in Germany before Christmas, and one that does come together, it looks like, will be a disaster. And then you have the other aspect of this, the polarization, which creates the circumstances for top-down police state measures. In Italy yesterday, an anti-vax demonstration got somewhat hijacked by what's the equivalent of the Italian Antifa, the anarchists, who went and trashed the main trade union headquarters in Italy, the CGIL, and then went and trashed a major emergency room in a Rome hospital. This polarization, which we see with the so-called Proud Boys, and there has to be an investigation of FBI infiltration of the so-called nationalist right movement in the United States, including what happened on January 6th. But that, against Black Lives Matter and Antifa, you create polarization so people can't think clearly about alternatives. The problems facing most people are the same. The push for the Green New Deal means no electricity will be available. And the Great Reset means that credit will be available to bail out bankrupt financial institutions and corporations, but not to invest in the real economy. And whether you think you're a leftist or a rightist, conservative or liberal, you have a common interest. Take power away from this global elite, the Davos crowd, the Mark Carneys, the Michael Blumenthals, or Bloomberg rather, from the former mayor of New York, who's heading up the anti-coal movement. These are the enemies of mankind. As Schwab says, you don't have a right to hope for a better future. So don't be manipulated by narratives that are designed to create that kind of polarization. You have to think big. To defeat the Great Reset and the Green New Deal, we need a new financial architecture, such as the one that Lyndon LaRouche devised with his 4 laws, that's based on physical economic principles. And what I would urge you to do is go to theschillerinstitute.com, download the wake-up call and circulate it and start the discussion among people to think big about creating a new financial architecture, breaking the power of the existing forces behind the so-called deep state. So that's my report for this morning. I will see you again tomorrow.